5-7 talks about something called point-slope form. Now, we just got done talking about slope-intercept form, and point-slope form is just another form that we can use to help us graph lines. So, in 5-6, you saw that if we know the slope and we know the y-intercept, we can graph a line. Now, we can make it even more generic than that. If we know the slope and we know any point on the line, we can still graph the line. And this is because you only need 2 points to make a line. So this is very similar to what we did in 5-6. They're going to give us a point and a slope. So the first thing we do is we plot the point. So the point here is 3, 1. So I'm going to go to 3 and 1. There's 3, 1 on my graph. Then from that point, I count the slope. Now my slope is 2, so remember that that's 2 over 1. So from that point, I'm going up 2 over 1. So there's my second point, and then I have 2 points, which means that I can make a line. So then I make a line, and I have my graph. Okay? Pretty simple. Plot the point, count the slope, draw the line. Let's look at another one. Point, -2, 4. So I'm going to go to -2, 4 on my graph. Slope, 3/4. So from that point, I go up 3 over 4. So there's my other point. And now that I have 2 points, I can make a line. Okay, so that's kind of the first thing you'll see today is here's the point, here's the slope, graph the line. Now I want to do this one last example because you'll notice it says slope 0. Now we talked about in 5-6, sorry, that when we have a slope of 0, we're going to have a horizontal line. So let's go to 4, -3. Nope, that's 4, +3. 4, -3 would be down here. Okay, and remember, if it's not a fraction, we put it over 1. So this is up 0 over 1. Up 0 over 1. So as you can see, it's just going to keep going straight across. So that's why when we have a slope of 0, we're going to have a horizontal line. So when you see slope of 0, that's what that means. Okay? Now, the next thing you'll see is how do we write an equation in point-slope form? Well, to be able to do that, you first of all need to know what point-slope form is. And that's what this little box here tells us. So it says the line with slope m that contains the point x1, y1, so that's just an ordered pair, a generic ordered pair, can be described with the equation y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So this is our kind of generic form of point-slope form. And you'll notice here that we need to know the slope and we need to know a point on the line, and once we know those two things, we can write point-slope form. And that's why it's called point-slope form, because you need the point and the slope. So here's what our problems will look like in this section. We have slope equals 1/6, 0.51. So all we need to do is similar to 5-6, is we need to take the slope, which is m, and plug it in for m. And then our point, we'll label it x1, y1. We just need to take those values and put them in for y1, put them in for x1. So my equation would be y minus 1 equals 1/6 times x minus 5. And there's my equation in point-slope form. So it's just plugging in the numbers to the correct spots. Let's look at another one. So once again, I have my slope, which is -4, so that's going to go where m goes. And then I have x1, y1. So x1 is going to go right here. y1 is going to come all the way over here. So then I have in my equation y minus 3 equals -4 times x minus 0. Now I do want you to know that in this particular example, if you were to probably check your answers in the back of the book or in the teacher's edition, they're not going to write this minus 0 part because it doesn't do anything. So they would probably have the equation written like this because of the minus 0. But either way would be correct. Just in math, we don't typically write zeros if it doesn't change anything. Okay, one more example here. We have my slope. So I'm going to plug that in. We have x1. So that's going to go here. And we have y1. So that's going to go over here. So when I do that, I get y minus -4 equals 1 times x minus -1. So with the minus and negative, let's change those to pluses. So I'd get y plus 4 equals 1 times x plus 1. Now again, if we were to check our answers here, they're probably not going to write the 1 here in front of the slope because 1 times anything is just the same thing. So you would probably see it written like this. And again, that's just because in math we don't write things that aren't going to change anything. So the 1 doesn't change anything, so we typically just don't write it. One more here that I wanted to show you. You can do example A on your own. I just wanted to talk to you about example B here because of the slope 0. So if we again look at my point-slope form equation, okay, I'm going to take 0, put it in for m. I'm going to take 3, I'm going to put it for x1, and I'm going to take -4, and I'm going to put it for y1. So I get y minus -4 equals 0 times x minus 3. So then minus and negative is a plus, so I'd have y plus 4 equals 0 times x minus 3. Now, what is that 0 going to do to whatever it multiplies by? Okay, 0 times anything is 0. So here I wouldn't even really need this x minus 3 part. It would just be 0. Okay, now again, I'm not going to mark you wrong if you leave it like this, but I just want you to know that this is probably how the back of the book would write it, because 0 times anything is 0, so that's going to kind of cancel out this x minus 3 part. So that's how we write an equation in point-slope form if we know the slope and a point. Okay, and that's all we're going to talk about here in this first part of 5-7. I know it's pretty quick, pretty short, but it gets a little more involved in part 2, so I didn't want to cram it all together. So that's all for part 1, and we will see you tomorrow.